The Wonderful Adventure of the Beanstalk. Before we begin, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel to see more stories like these and learn the secrets of the best fantasy adventures. In a small village at the foot of very high mountains, there lived a curious boy named Juniper. Juniper didn't have much, just a small house he shared with his grandmother and an empty garden that still dreams of blooming. Despite everything, his imagination was as big as the sky above them. While our garden is empty, my head is full of adventures, Juniper always said, dreaming of distant castles, magical hidden lands and gentle creatures. Grandma, a wise and patient woman, loved his optimism, but always remembered to keep him with his feet on the ground. "Remember, my dear," she said to him one evening by the fire, "in the real world, we must use our hearts and our prudence as well as our imagination." The real world, however, was about to become far more magical than they could have imagined. One day, while cleaning the garden, Juniper found a very strange thing, a small bag of beans that shone with a golden light. "I've never seen anything like it," he exclaimed, looking at them with wide eyes. He immediately ran to show them to his grandmother. Grandma frowned. "Oh, Juniper, these are not ordinary beans," she said softly. "They are magic, and magic, you know, always comes with some complications." But Juniper, his heart full of curiosity, decided to plant one that very night. After all, how can something bad happen from a simple bean, he thought, smiling under the stars. At dawn, Juniper woke up with a cry of amazement. In the garden, in place of the bare vegetable patch, there was a tall, very tall plant, climbing straight up to the sky. A gigantic bean plant, with leaves as big as sheets and stems as thick as tree trunks. "I absolutely must see where it leads," Juniper decided, feeling an irresistible adventurous call. Despite his grandmother's advice to give up, he gathered strength and began to climb. The journey upward was exciting and a little scary. Giant leaves swayed beneath his feet, soft clouds caressed his face. With each step toward the sky, the world below him became smaller and smaller, and his heart pounded with excitement. When Juniper finally reached the top, his eyes widened to an extraordinary sight. Above the clouds, there was a world of floating castles, fields of glowing flowers, and paths studded with golden light. It was a magical place, silent and beautiful. But among all that wonder, a large building caught his attention. It was different from the others, the towers were in ruins, the windows were broken, and a sad silence enveloped the entire building. Driven by curiosity, Juniper approached and entered. In the heart of the palace was someone he never expected to meet, a giant. But not a scary giant. This was a gentle, solitary giant, with sweet, smiling eyes. "Who are you, little explorer?" asked the giant. His name was Happy Leaf, and he lived alone in that forgotten palace. "Oh, you've come all the way here? Well, then sit down and I'll tell you a story." And so Happy Leaf told Juniper how, long ago, he was the guardian of the magic beans. The beans could bring wonders, but only when used wisely. Unfortunately, some humans had been too greedy and had taken them without thinking. This, he said, had broken the balance between the earth and the sky, leaving the world above the clouds in ruins. Before continuing, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel to see more stories like these and learn the secrets of the best fantasy adventures. Listening carefully, Juniper felt his heart fill with compassion. "But then we have to do something. We can restore the balance, right, Happy Leaf?" The giant smiled and nodded. "Of course we can. But the true power of beans lies in sharing. If we bring them back to your world and teach your villagers to use them wisely, they can bring magic back both above and below the clouds." And so Juniper accepted the great responsibility. With a bag of magic beans and Happy Leaf at his side, they went down the beanstalk to bring the gift back to the villagers. When Juniper returned, the village was as he had left it, calm, simple, and without much magic. When he told his adventure, however, not everyone believed him at first. Magic beans? A giant above the clouds? Oh, impossible, some said. But Juniper was not discouraged. We must not just believe, he explained patiently. We must learn to work together and use these beans wisely, to make our land flourish again. With the help of Happy Leaf, Juniper began to teach the village the importance of balance, not too little, not too much. Not only with beans, but also with how to respect nature and people. As the magic beans were planted, the village began to transform before their eyes. Lush trees grew in the fields, crops grew more abundant than ever, and even flowers appeared in places that had never been colored before. Every corner of the village became a little piece of paradise. But the magic didn't stop there. The world above the clouds also began to shine again. The fields of Happy Leaf were bright again, the floating castles were no longer sad, and the entire skyline seemed to sing with joy. To celebrate, the village and Happy Leaf threw a grand party. People danced and sang together, uniting the human world with the wonder world above. There were no more distances between them, only union and happiness. The grandmother, who had initially warned Juniper of the dangers of magic, now looked at her grandson with pride. You have shown that courage and heart can make a big difference, my little one, she said, stroking his hair. Before we get to the end, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel to see more stories like these and learn the secrets of the best fantasy adventures. By the end of the adventure, Juniper had changed. He was no longer just a dreamy child, he had become a leader, someone who looked beyond his own needs to help everyone. But more importantly, he knew that the true value of magic was not to keep it for himself, but to share it with anyone who needed it. This magic is a gift, she told the village. And we must treat it with love and respect, just as we do our land and each other. With Happy Leaf's final words of wisdom, the giant returned to his palace above the clouds, knowing that the bond between the two worlds had now been restored. And Juniper continued to look out the window every evening, smiling at the sky and knowing that, one day, more adventures would fill his dreams. And now, he asked himself, laughing under the moon. Who knows, the world is full of new beings to discover. And they all lived happily ever after, among magical clouds, flowery fields, and hearts full of wonder.